Yeah.
We have going on here.
Okay.
One is the increase in, you can call it dark money, or you can call it political influence money that has scaled incredibly. There's an article I will forward you when I hang up the phone, talking about the energy market in Florida and how bought it has been by the influence of power and how much money they've spent on elections. So if you would remind me after we hang up for me to forward those emails, it would give you insights into the level of corruption and influence buying there. So one, I have been in this climate science, climate justice space for 9 years now. I'm a science teacher and a school principal by trade. Formed this nonprofit CLEO Institute to work with climate scientists to break down the science, seriousness, and solutions for a lay public. So we've been working top down, bottom up with grassroots communities, elected leaders, chambers of commerce, cities and municipalities, the county at large, teachers in schools, millennials, anybody who would slow down long enough, faith-based communities, to sort of light the fire and have them heed the science in terms of action for adaptation and mitigation of the climate crisis. So my lens has led me to the second huge thing that people aren't aware of. I don't think people understand how much money is used by the energy companies to influence a lack of progressive renewable energy movements here. And I don't think we understand how much vulnerability there is in the population that is so easily bought or confused or disinformed effectively by these bad actors. So the justice community is rallying, really. My goal right now is to bridge the climate science frustrated advocates and the climate justice ones, so that the scientists, the science-oriented folks are heightening their action because of the intensity of the climate justice. And I'm trying to have the climate justice community advocate in their own interests eloquently and accurately, simply, by understanding just enough of the science, you see? So that's the intersection for me that makes Florida even more vulnerable to bad actors like Governor Scott, because between the Florida Power and Light and Duke Energy folks that take good amendments like solar amendments that try to make solar more affordable and ubiquitous for homeowners and change the language to suggest that what they want to do will better help poor people, have people voting against their own interests. And that's extremely frustrating. The NAACP 2 years ago came out in support of an FP&L amendment that was completely contrary to what needed their support. And the grassroots community have had to fight back really hard in this education on advocacy to prevent that from happening again. We did prevail to some extent, so...
yeah, I heard someone else mention that. Can you tell me a little bit about how that would have happened, or why would the NAACP kind of align them? I mean, were they... Maybe this is just obvious and cynical, but were they just aligning themselves in order to get donations themselves, or what do you think? What was happening there?
To some extent, some of that, but I think the messaging by FP&L was scaring them into thinking prices would rise, that they would not be able to afford continuous energy, and so I forget the correct wording of it, but one was called the solar amendment for public whatever, and another was so similarly worded, and they would hire canvassers to go out exactly where the other group was, and just it became so confusing that we couldn't. So we had to come up with a yes in August no in November.
Oh. Okay.
It's very simple campaign just to let people know, don't fall for it. Here's the bottom line. You want to support renewable energy, so in August, you want to vote yes. And then November, you want to vote no.
Right.
So simplifying what actions need the support of the masses has become a challenge. And the money spent, now we ended up winning. We won in 2016, we won the amendment, and so we defeated the 6 million or 20 million or whatever the energy groups put into it, but it took a concerted effort. And Florida has so many issues that, you know, people who are fighting for progressive values and cleaner politics, it's like, it's difficult to come up for breath when you're constantly having to go back down to fight another fight. So they're exhausting.
Right. No, that's really it. It's interesting that you are trying to bridge the scientists and the community justice organizations. That seem I've talked to a number of people, and they've all talked about how that is one of the big problems. Can you tell me a little bit about how you decided that would be the role that you would take on, or how that happened?
Right, and I've been talking about it so much now that everybody seems to be embracing these merging worlds that I'm trying to. So in 2017, in April, so a year ago, I was asked to do to make a speech at the first Miami March for Science. We had our own March for Science here in Miami, and the organizers asked me to rally the troops. So I was out there speaking to them, and I was looking at a crowd of maybe 5,000.
Wow, yeah.
And I was saying, if you're loud, get louder. If you're angry, get angrier. That science must be heeded to keep public out of harm's way. And I did all the Bill Nye and Neil deGrasse Tyson and Dora the Explorer, the families engaged.
Yeah.
Those are my heroes. These, you know. Neil deGrasse Tyson has a place in my home if he ever wants to come live with me.
Yeah.
So wonderful. But the crowd was a very middle-class crowd. It was rather white. They were adorable. They were out in numbers. The signs were amazing. One of them had a sign up that said, "Things are so bad, even the introverts are out here."
Right.
Which I totally loved.
Yeah.
But at that march, I was speaking to them, and I'm a scientist, and I actively believe that all science can be simplified for the lay public to understand, and that when you have settled science like anthropogenic global warming, it's no time to be debating that. It's time to roll up our sleeves, not throw up our hands. So in speaking to that crowd, I was very moved. They responded beautifully to my messages about standing up for science and standing up for justice and that. And then a week later, I was asked to speak to the People's Climate March in Miami. And I had been to the New York March in 2014, I guess it was, with 400,000 of my best friends. And, I was proud of Miami for pulling together a food march last year. And in speaking to them, I was looking at the crowd, and there was a much more diverse crowd, people of color, frontline communities. And I consider those my people too. I'm from Trinidad originally.
Okay.
And in Trinidad, it's a very mixed population of blacks, Indians, and then mutts. So I loved that crowd, and they were eating up the message of science informing policy and justice and all of that. And then I came away from that second speech and said to me, how do I bridge my two worlds? How do I get the science-oriented folks to embrace the urgency of the justice problems that are escalating? Because it's clear from all the data and all the scientists I work with that climate change is a threat multiplier to all the social injustice that exists. And in CLEO, we work really hard with the climate scientists to make sure that it's not just sea level rise, which is the gateway drug to get them to pay attention to climate change.
Oh,
but it's also about salt